straight from the mayor's mouth, with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Hello everyone and welcome to Straight from the Mayor's Mouth. Oh, hello there, Matt. It's hard to believe it's been a couple of months.
It seems like just yesterday we were sitting in here and doing this, but welcome back.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you very much. Look, I've had a wonderful time. Absolutely wonderful time.
Someone that's living in Dubbo and goes off and has a bit of an adventure, but obviously you always come back, you know where home is.
Yes.
So how did you go? Did you enjoy yourself over the last couple of months?
Look, I'd like to sort of tell the listeners it was terrible, it was woeful, it was, yes. Couldn't think of anywhere else worse to go in the world, but the reality was I had an absolute ball. It was fantastic, mate. We went to across the old motherland, went to England, but also did a bit of Amsterdam. Very interesting place. How much fun's that joint, I tell you? For lots of reasons. Did Belgium and Bruges and all those sort of wonderful areas through there, and saw all the old World War I sites and the battle sites, and went across and did Ireland and Northern Ireland and Belfast. Well, there's still some tension there, I can tell you, and Wales. But of course, to me, the favourite place I visited was Scotland. Absolutely adored Scotland. What a beautiful, beautiful country.
Yeah, right. Well, it's always good to see people enjoy themselves overseas, but again, knowing where home is, coming back to Dubbo, great to see you back.
Oh, mate, look, I tell you what, coming back, though, has been lovely, especially with this weather.
Yeah.
Oh, how divine.
Good weather at the moment.
Coming back from the UK, where it was probably sitting, when we left wasn't too bad, because they're moving to their summer. So we left Wales, and it was about 23 degrees in the day we left, so it was actually quite pleasant. Last time we came back from overseas, we hit Dubbo and it was about 42 or something, so it was a whole different ball game. Coming back right now and hitting Dubbo at about 21, 22 and the sun out and, absolutely glorious weather. So it is lovely to be back. Lovely to be sitting here again talking to you as well.
Well, the weather's probably pretty similar here to what it is over there at the moment.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Sort of going across and sitting out in the back deck there of a home there in Cardiff and coming back and sitting out in my back deck here in Dubbo. It's felt very similar with a cup of coffee in my hand.
Maybe just not quite as green in your backyard.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's almost luminous green over there, isn't it? It's sort of the sun comes out and it just illuminates the area.
It's a bright green, isn't it?
It is. You've got to get the sunglasses out pretty quickly. But no, look, it's lovely to be back. We had a wonderful time, great memories, and it was fantastic. So
we won't recap all the things you missed in the couple of months you were away, but Richard did fill in for you, so thank you to Richard for filling in.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Good to have you back here again.
Oh, look, it's lovely, and thank you, Richard, for doing the trick as well for us as well and sitting in this chair. Well, mate, let's jump straight into it because it looks as though you've been very, very busy while I've been away, as per usual. Nothing seems to have changed there, but interesting one to start off with. I came back in and I noticed a little bit of controversy there about the Dubbo show last week. So when I came back, there was all this sort of talk about knifing and all these type of things happening. Tell me, what was the truth? What actually happened?
It was pretty disappointing, actually. On Monday morning, I was sent the front page of a city newspaper as well as the inside page that continued on the story. And it was a bit shocking. Huge headline, "On a Knife Edge." And then the sub-headline talked about youth crime wave. And then when you read the story, which has got an exclusive by this reporter, extra cops were rushed into the town of Dubbo at the weekend after a teenage boy had a knife held to his throat at the local show. And further, escalating youth crime in the region, sending residents into a panic. And then still on the front page, police have bolstered their resources. So it's all sounding pretty bad. Then when you read the story inside, it goes on further. It talks about the fact that police are urgently bolstering their resources and issued a safety alert to the region already under siege by out-of-control youth crime. A subheading there, Town on Edge. Then it's got a big photo of Tim Chin, takes about a third of the page, and underneath that it's got Dubbo's top cop, Superintendent Timothy Chin, will send police into the town's schools. And I thought, wow, this looks really
incredibly
bad.
dramatic, yeah.
That's right. So, I got sent that first thing Monday morning, so I picked up the phone and rang Tim Chin, and I actually apologised to him. I said, Tim, look, I know I've got no say over what you do, but I'm just interested, and sorry for wasting your time, but I'm interested to hear what happened at the show on Friday night with his article that I just read in the Telegraph. He said, well, Matt, it's wrong.
You're kidding.
I said, what do you mean?
The whole thing was made up?
Well, it wasn't made up, but it was certainly wrong.
Right.
The Daily Telegraph had seen an article on a social media page that was posted by someone anonymously.
Right.
And they said that their child had been held up at knife point at the Dubbo show, therefore stay away from the Dubbo show. And they said in this anonymous post that they'd reported it to the police. Now, Tim said there'd been no report of any knife incident.
Really?
There had been an incident where there'd been a couple of teenagers who knew each other and one had stolen some property from the other one. So not nice, but these were kids that knew each other and maybe there was a bit of history between the two, I'm not sure. But there was certainly no knife incident. No extra police resources were brought in because of this incident. Now, Tim explained, as would be common sense, that whenever there was a major event on, whether there be a major event at the turf club or at a football match or any event where you've got a large crowd of people, you'll make sure there's extra police. There might be extra police rostered on. There might be extra police brought from surrounding areas. But so you can have your normal police resourcing, you need to make sure you've got some extra police for these major events. So Tim said, as a normal course of events, that's what would normally happen. And the real clincher for me was they had quotes in this article, in the Daily Telegraph, from Tim Chin, and Tim Chin did not speak to the
You're
Daily
kidding.
Telegraph.
What? So they made up some quotes?
I don't know whether they made up quotes or they misattributed quotes, but it's a pretty basic thing. They actually had a photo of Tim Chin in the Telegraph, in the article.
Right.
So you would obviously think, well, there's a photo of Tim,
Yep.
there's some quotes from Tim, that all makes sense. But they didn't actually interview Tim for the article.
Oh, that's horrendous.
So just sloppy journalism, disappointing sloppy journalism.
Yep.
It would have been pretty simple to do a fact check, the same as I did when I read this story. I went, well, that sounds terrible. Let me just ring the police commander or ring the police in general and find out about that. A journalist could have done that. Before I go and write an article that's on the front page of the
absolutely.
paper to damage the reputation of a community.
Well, shouldn't even the editor be checking that as well?
Someone, surely
Absolutely.
someone, somewhere.
Where's the integrity in regards to a situation like that? You know, isn't there some sort of a journalist's code of ethics or something like that they need to be following to ensure the fact that these stories that they're presenting, particularly in regards to a front page of a national paper, that comes across as being truthful at the very least?
Well, the thing is that we often talk about social media and anyone can go and stick some stuff up on social media, but the reason we still want to buy newspapers and watch the news and listen to the news is because we've got someone who's got a journalist degree, has got a journalistic background, has got journalistic integrity.
Yeah.
The first thing you'll think you do is check your facts.
Absolutely.
And maybe not just check your facts by, I read it on a social media post.
Yeah.
Check your facts by actually going and doing some research, finding out something about the story, maybe getting two different sources of that same information to make sure it's correct. So I'm not a journalist, but you'd think they'd be pretty basic things that any journalist would do to make sure information is correct before you go and put it on the front page of a newspaper. So
talk about don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Like that's just ridiculous.
It is.
Like it's
this whole process here could have just been a much better factual story if there was just some fact checking done.
Yeah.
And the Dubbo show, I mean, I went down on Sunday and talked to some of the committee members there, and from all reports, the Dubbo show was a fantastic show.
Yeah.
The police actually told me there were no major incidents there.
Yeah.
People were well behaved. People had a good time there. It did rain, like there was a bit of rain around, but people still enjoyed themselves there. Good crowds, good numbers. Overall, we should be talking about what a great Dubbo show. Another Dubbo show, fantastic event. Isn't it fantastic that we have such a great event and such a good show society, such a good hardworking committee that puts on these events, lots of fantastic things at the show, but no, instead we're talking about a front page story, which was wrong and negative for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Oh, it's so frustrating, and it highlights again the importance of why the integrity of journalism, it needs to be always at the forefront of any journalistic article so that people trust and can then sort of make a value judgment in regards to what comes forward. And when they do things like this, boy, oh boy, it puts into question the journalistic integrity of every journalist and every paper. And also from the point of view, you see the hard work that people are doing in the background there, like the Dubbo Show Committee, and just how it impacts them and our community in general as well.
And there's all well and good to say, well, we'll fix that story up or report it correctly, but they never put it on the front page
No,
when they
that's
do
right.
that.
It's page 11 or page 12. We're sorry about this later on that. And the damage already done.
The damage is already done. That's it.
Now on a far more positive front here, mate. This is fabulous. I know we've talked about this in the past, and the The ASX200 series, the CEO series. This is a wonderful idea, initiative I know that you've been pushing now for a couple of years about getting ASX200 CEOs to come out to Dubbo to speak to the Chamber of Commerce and business leaders out here to provide insight, to provide some guidance, and I suppose so they can tell their story to help our stories become even better.
Yeah, I really like the concept, and again, I'm a bit biased because I helped come up with it initially, but if I go back a few years, way back on the 9th of April 2014, there was a chamber breakfast, a Dubbo Business Chamber breakfast, and we had the then Microsoft CEO, a woman by the name of Pip Marlowe, and she came and spoke at that breakfast. Now, I knew Pip from my IT dealings, and I knew her personally, and I was speaking to her about a few different things, and I actually said, would you be interested in coming to Dubbo and speaking at a chamber breakfast? And she said, yeah, that'd be fine. I'm happy to do that. And again, the chamber was more than happy to have someone of that stature, CEO of Microsoft Australia. Fantastic. Let's bring this particular person out. Now, we did that, and the chamber had their normal breakfast. So they have a monthly breakfast where they have a guest speaker come along, talk about different things. And I don't know the exact numbers, but maybe they get 30 to each of those breakfasts, for example. When the Microsoft CEO came along, suddenly 100 people came along because obviously a lot of people want to hear from the Microsoft CEO.
That's right.
So that little idea, it started before then, but it happened on the 9th of April 2014. And I kept talking to the Chamber of Commerce. I was Mayor of Dubbo City Council at that stage. I kept speaking to them. And I said, that actually worked pretty well, even better than I expected it to. I wonder if there's anyone else we could get out. And we started talking about who else we might know. And then I said, well, what about if I actually just started inviting ASX200 CEOs out? Now, we're not going to get all of them. They're not going to come out, definitely. But I think we're going to get a few. There's 200 of them. Sure, we're going to get a few. So we came up with this idea. And then my job in the whole scheme of things was to get these people here, use the mayoral letterhead, if you like, to attract these people. The Dubbo Business Chamber would put the breakfast on. Qantas were going to fly people out here for free. Not that they probably needed to fly for free, but we want to be able to make it a comprehensive package for them. And the Taronga Western Plains Zoo was a bit of the draw card in saying that we'd put you up at Zoofari overnight. So it was a combination of all four, if you like, in that partnership. So we started that concept, and on the 4th of February 2015, the ASX200 series was officially launched, and we started off with the Qantas Link CEO, John Gissing was the first speaker, but we ended up over the next 2 years, we had CEOs of companies like Woolworths, Domino's Pizza, JB Hi-Fi, Bega Cheese, Star Entertainment Group, Tabcorp, Telstra. I mean, some of these companies were just household names.
Absolutely, yeah.
And people didn't always know the CEO. They didn't know the individual name. But you'd say the CEO of Woolworths, I've heard of Woolworths. And these people have made it to the top of a public listed company that's in the ASX 200.
Yeah.
They're not mugs.
No.
They've obviously got skills, they've got experience. So a bit like you said, they can impart a lot of that knowledge into the business people of Dubbo. So people were turning up in droves to these meetings. They were fantastic. The thing that I got out of it as well, which I didn't realise when I first started, was that businesses in the room said, wow, we just had the CEO of Domino's Pizza or the CEO of Tabcorp. Gee, Dubbo must be more important than I thought it was. So suddenly the pride in Dubbo businesses was slightly elevated because you had someone of this stature come along. Now, they also learned a bit about Dubbo while they were here, had a great experience staying at the zoo. So all these things just made so much sense. That was fantastic. We also had other ones, which I think some of the best speakers sometimes were some of the companies we didn't always know. So there were companies like GUD Holdings, Cube Holdings, Horizon, Ainsworth, Aspen Medical, SCA Properties Group, some of those which aren't necessarily household names. They're still,
you probably know their products.
Well, you sometimes know some of their products or some of the companies they deal with, but they're still ASX 200 companies. So you're still...
Incredibly successful companies. And as you say, these people who are in this role, the CEO, obviously incredibly talented people, great people managers, great business sense, all this sort of stuff. The fact that in any sort of walk of life we need our mentors. In the business world, to get that type of mentorship coming through must be extraordinary.
Yeah, so all of that was fantastic. That series ran 2015, ran 2016. Of course, we had the amalgamation in 2016. And there were many things that got stalled or just had to be put on pause, if you like, during that amalgamation process. The focus after the amalgamation on the 12th of May 2016 was to get 2 council areas as one. So probably focus on things like this fell away to a certain extent, and it really needed council on board to make this keep happening. And I suppose I was driving it to a certain extent while I was mayor. So it stopped. So the CEO series fell away, didn't go again. When I got back in as mayor, I had a few things I wanted to try and revive and a few things to get happening again. And this was one of those things. And I must admit, I have been working away at it, not solely focused on it, but right, I've got to get that done. I've got to chip away at this. And so we finally got to the stage where we had all the partners lined up again. We've got Qantas on board for free flights. We've got Taronga Western Plains Zoo on board again to put accommodation up.
Good, yep.
We've got Dubbo Business Chamber, obviously there, the crucial part of it, to host the breakfast.
Yes.
And so we launched this week again the Dubbo ASX200 series. So it was relaunched, if you like.
Yep.
We've got the first speaker will be the Qantas Link speaker again, the Qantas Link CEO. So the same as we started the last time.
Because that's the new lady who's taken over from Alan Joyce, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but not Qantas CEO. This is the Qantas Link
Qantas
CEO.
Link. Okay,
right.
yes.
So there's a woman named Rachel who'll be the first speaker in August.
Right.
And then we'll go out, the same as I did last time. I'll just start inviting the various ASX200 CEOs there, and you invite, you don't expect all of them to turn up, but what we found last time, we started inviting them, and then we started getting approaches from some of them because people heard about this well, how do I be a part of this? How can my company be featured in this? So it doesn't take long before we'll start filling up those. And again, it's only a 12-month agreement to start with, but I'm sure this will roll on. I would like to see it roll on permanently. And I don't want to put our weights up too much here, but I did start thinking about something else that started very small, and that was the first TED Talk. So the TED Talk conference concept started way back in 1984. Richard Werman and Harry Marks had an idea of a one-off event where they bring people from technology, entertainment and design, hence TED, the TED from technology, entertainment and design. And they brought this together. They wanted to share ideas. And that first conference back in 1984, they featured things like the compact disc. They featured an e-book. They had 3D graphics from this company called Lucasfilm.
Yes.
So they had a few different things there.
It's a little small company, that's right. Little Lucasfilms there, yeah.
Exactly
They
right.
went on to become pretty decent after a while, didn't
People
they?
heard
They
them
did a pretty
little
good
bit.
job.
Yeah. But that first conference was a flop.
Is that
Complete
right?
flop. Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't make any money, didn't really go that well. And so it was a one-off event and it was shelved.
Yep.
6 years later, let's try that again. Maybe there's something there. Maybe we didn't quite get it right the first time around. If you look at it now, by the end of last year, TED Talks have been watched over 3 billion times across various platforms and in person across the planet. Yeah. So I'm not saying the Dubbo ASX200 CEO series will get as big as TED Talks, but it did start very small and grew.
From little things, big things grow.
Yeah, there's no reason this can't grow. And I know when we ran it last time, I was certainly approached. I know the Dubbo Business Chamber was approached by a number of organisations saying, "How did you get that CEO to Dubbo?" And the answer typically was, "We asked them."
Yes, that's right. Yeah, ask the question, see what happens.
That's right.
What's the worst they can do? Say no. Yeah.
The worst they could do is say no. So there was a bit more to it than that. But in the end, it was a very successful series, and I'm sure that this one will be just as successful. So keep an eye out for some of these.
Watch this space, as they say.
Yeah, exactly right.
Now, this is a really interesting one, Matt. During the week, you officially opened an AUKUS forum here in Dubbo. AUKUS, are we talking about, this is the Australia, UK, US agreement, had a forum here in Dubbo. Now, typically, is this the same group we're talking about here that talks about the nuclear subs that's being set up there around Adelaide area? Or is this the same group we're talking about?
This is the same AUKUS, and I was a bit like you when they said, "Can you come along and open up an AUKUS forum in Dubbo?"
Yeah.
I thought, are we building nuclear subs in Dubbo?
I was thinking the same thing. Are we setting up our own little sort of nuclear sub hub here?
Do some testing along the Macquarie River, maybe? So
that could make quite a sight.
I think they'd have a bit of trouble with a few of the corners that we've got.
Oh, that's right, exactly, yeah.
So you're right, and I was a bit the same, and so I was quite intrigued, and they asked me to come along and open it up. But
so what's this about?
AUKUS is much more than just the nuclear submarines. And in fact, when I was doing some research into this and looking at it, I found some information there where the Prime Minister has said that AUKUS will be the largest industrial endeavour in Australia's history and will require a whole-of-nation effort.
Wow.
Now, it's much
That's
more.
a big call.
It is. It's a big call, isn't it?
So it's not just nuclear submarines from the sound of things.
No. So there are opportunities. So it's really about sharing
Right.
with Australia, UK and US, sharing a whole range of things. So new industries, new expertise. So you might talk about things like cybersecurity. You might talk about things like AI,
Right.
quantum computers. So a whole range of things. Nuclear submarines is just one of the things there. But
Was there a potential here for Dubbo to become the new Silicon Valley?
well, I'm not sure if it's at that level, but it's an opportunity for Dubbo businesses to participate. And this forum, that's exactly what the focus was. And
Yeah.
I was quite impressed. There were a number of people there. If I had to pick a number, I'd probably say there were 50 people in the room.
Yeah.
And they were from mainly businesses around Dubbo, but some around the region as well. But it really was about just how do we participate? How do we work out a way for our business, whatever our business might do, how do we work out a way for our business to be part of this whole new AUKUS process, if you like?
So is this the federal government going out to all major regional centres and having these discussions, or is it sort of, have they targeted Dubbo here as a potential place of interest?
They're going to, I don't know all the places they're going to, but they're certainly going to different areas. And it's not necessarily the federal government. There's different organisations. So this was from an energy and resources organisation that are going out there saying that we think that there's potential opportunity there for you. So come along and hear what we've got to say.
I suppose with the res being very close and stuff like that as well, there may be a link there.
Well, they're absolutely right. In terms of the res being there, you've got an opportunity to produce things in a more environmentally friendly way. So, for example, you might need an industry that requires green hydrogen. Well, you've got renewable energy here, you can produce green hydrogen. So there are opportunities along those lines. And I don't really know, having been at the AUKUS forum the other day, I don't really know all the individual things that you could possibly say we're going to get out of this today. What I do know is keep your eyes and your ears out, or your eyes out and your ears open for opportunities. Don't just think AUKUS, nuclear submarines, end of story, because that's probably what I thought, and probably what most people think. They hear AUKUS, they think of nuclear submarines. Keep your eyes and ears out for other opportunities that businesses might have there.
I'm very interested to hear how this is going to sort of pan out, as they say.
Yeah, and I think it's big picture, long term. We're talking about things that are going to happen over decades, not necessarily next week, but we want Dubbo businesses to be at the forefront of everything that's happening. So, yes, Dubbo Business was a part of this. I don't know how many places they went to, but the fact they came here, I think it's a good sign. They see that Dubbo is a progressive place and Dubbo businesses are progressive as well. So, yeah, see what happens next in this one.
Sounds good. Now, I notice here that during the week you met with a Chinese trade delegation in Dubbo. Boy, it's all happening this week. We've got people from AUKUS. We've got announcements happening there with the ASX200 series. We've got Chinese trade delegates coming in here as well. There's a bit of a delegation coming through. So what happened with this? Is this sort of trying to enhance some more of our links with China?
Absolutely right. And it's also looking at, again, what our businesses can do. What I do like about this is that this is the New South Wales government. So there's an arm of New South Wales government called Investment New South Wales.
Right.
So they look at opportunities there. And these are obviously based out of Sydney. These staff are based out of Sydney typically. Sometimes they're regional, but typically out of Sydney. And they do get various delegations come through to see what trade opportunities, what trade links there are there. And in this particular one, one of the people we met with from Investment New South Wales was a senior export advisor. Again, here's a delegation coming. Where do we take this delegation? Sure, it'd be easy to say just go to Sydney. Maybe there's some opportunities down there. Or let's go to regional locations. Now, when you come regionally, the first place you'd go to for something like this would be Fletcher's International Abattoirs. So obviously there and have a look around there, which they did do. But they also had a few businesses that came along and just talked to them about a few of their products that they thought might be applicable. So again, it's Dubbo businesses. We went along, when I say we, I went along and met with the delegation just to basically say the mayor thinks you're important enough to come along and say hello. It's not so much that it's me, it's the title of the mayor that means something in this particular scenario. And from that perspective, from a Chinese delegation, coming to a city and meeting the mayor is important for them. But again, it's one of those things where what opportunities are there? Don't know. Maybe there's some opportunities there. Maybe some of the businesses that met with this delegation had to talk to them, and I won't go through some of the individual names. I've mentioned Fletcher's there, but I won't mention some of the others. Maybe there's some opportunities there where there's another place for them to export their product.
Yep.
Maybe they could increase production because there's more potential there, because I don't know if anyone knows, but China's got a lot of people. So you've got potential export markets there.
So it sounds to me as though things are definitely opening back up with China again, being our biggest export market. And is that what's happening out here? Are we getting a lot of Dubbo businesses these days actually trying to get some more links back to China again? Is that what you're seeing?
I don't know if I'd say a lot. I think we're seeing it a little bit. And I think it's not just a matter of opening up opportunities and opening up those relationships. While we see a little bit of tension, if you like, at the top end, you still have businesses that still need to buy and sell products. So you still want those trade opportunities. But I think what I'm really seeing is the New South Wales government is seeing, and the federal government as well, but in this scenario it was New South Wales government, is seeing positivity around Dubbo. It's seeing opportunities around Dubbo. It's got confidence in what's happening in Dubbo at the moment with the businesses, with the general environment in Dubbo. So they know they can bring along a delegation, and that delegation is not going to have their time wasted by coming along to Dubbo. Because
the fact they chose Dubbo to come out to speaks volumes, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. And that's it. Now, Dubbo's an easy one as well because you've got the zoo. So if you bring a delegation through, that's always a good thing to show them. But I think there's more than that. You don't want to just bring along a delegation to say, look at some lovely animals. You want to bring along a delegation that's got some real potential there, and that's exactly what they saw here. So it's good to meet them. I only spent about half an hour chatting to them about what they'd seen, what they'd done so far. What will develop out of this, again, we don't know. But as with any sales process, you're always just putting some fires in the iron and just seeing which ones go and take off. And this might, for some of these Dubbo businesses, this might take off, might be a huge opportunity, might be a lot of extra employment here in Dubbo out of something that suddenly expands their market.
Ah, well done. Right, 3D printing. Now, this is evolving, is the best way to put this, I suggest. We started off and we had the 3D printed toilet over there in West Dubbo, and it looks as though there's been some discussions during the week in regards to the potential here for a group to come in here and to set up possibly some social housing in Dubbo that is going to have 3D printed designs. I'm going to put it out there. I'm excited by this. Again, coming back from overseas and going and seeing places like Rotterdam over there in the Netherlands, who have this magnificent, it's a beautiful city, Rotterdam, and they have all of these wonderful new different ways of developing their buildings. The architectural designs over there are fascinating, and they're using all these new and modern wonderful forms of material. To me, it's a very futuristic city in the sense that it's always looking forward to moving in an advanced sort of way. To me, this is wonderful because this is a type of design. This 3D printing design, it's a modern style of design. It's something that's going to be moving forward, and it will continue to be being moved forward. It's still in the initial sort of stages in so many ways, but the fact that we're part of this excites me. So what's happening here?
There's a few things to point out there. One of it is the futuristic design. Another one is the speed of building. So you do have trouble getting enough labourers laying bricks, for example. It's hard to get enough labourers to lay bricks, and laying bricks is a fairly laborious and slow process. So 3D printing is very effective for all of that. But the other thing that some of these organisations that are talking to us are impressed with the 3D printing concept, it's all about the maintenance. You build a brick veneer home, for example, you put gyprock in the inside walls, and sometimes you get damage just with a normal rental process, a normal social housing. You get damage to those various walls, you get ongoing maintenance, and the cost of ongoing maintenance of social housing can be quite large. They like the idea of 3D printing because A, it's quick to put it up, B, they can do a range of designs. So if you're building a lot of social housing, it's quicker and cheaper to have all the designs the same. But it's pretty boring for a community to have identical designs. With 3D printing, it's pretty easy for an architect to change the design, and they can just put a different design in each time they put it into the 3D printer. So it's not a big drama to build buildings that look different. So it's not like a row of identical housing. So that's obviously good as well. So quick to build, looks good, looks very efficient. In terms of the insulation, in terms of the heat and Coulton insulation. You've got good insulation properties of the brick of the printed process, because you've got the two printed walls and then the air gap, which can also have insulation in between those two. So again, that can save on heating and cooling costs. And again, that maintenance. If you've got that brick exterior, the brick interior, the ongoing maintenance of that is minimal. So a whole range of advantages there. We've had some companies who have met with us, who have talked to us, who've sat down with us. We've taken them for a drive around, shown them different areas in Dubbo, and one of them followed up again this week to say that they're at the point now where they're getting ready to lodge a DA for the first of a number of houses, and I don't know exactly how many yet, but again, addressing some of the social housing problems we've got here and just lack of housing in general.
And this too would be linked through by the New South Wales government too. This would be a New South Wales government initiative based upon the fact social housing. So is this company then linked? Have they got a contract with New South Wales government?
I don't know the details at this stage yet, what level of detail there.
Right.
All I know is they're at the point now where they were talking about we're ready to lodge a DA for the first one, and they've got a number they want to do.
Yep.
But part of the reason they're doing it here is because, and let's face it, there are housing affordability, social housing, and lack of housing problems across the entire state, across the entire nation.
Yep.
Part of the reason that this company is looking at doing it here is because we've already shown a desire, because we've reserved some blocks of land for 3D printed housing.
Yep.
We've shown innovation in already doing 3D printed toilet.
Yep.
We've actually shown that our planning department knows how to consider a DA for a 3D printed structure, because we had to do it for our own structure. So the proof of concept when we did that. So when they've spoken to me, and this one in particular said, we're ready to lodge a DA and we know your staff can actually look at that and deal with it, because you've already shown you can do that.
Yep.
So there's no doubt about it that the steps that we've shown in the past, the innovation we've shown, the leadership we've shown in the past, will deliver more housing sooner for our community just by the leadership shown by council.
And of course, the expertise is growing every day.
Exactly right.
The more that this happens around the place, the greater the expertise becomes.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. So is this something then? So it's going to go to the DA. So we're at that sort of stage. How many houses are we looking at this point in time?
Well, I can't say, sorry, how many we're looking at. There's one at this stage that they're looking at.
There's at least one we know of at this point in time.
There's one that they are getting to the point they're ready to lodge a DA. So there's one there, but there's a number, and they've told me the numbers, but I'm not at liberty to share that at this stage. I'm sorry.
That's right.
But again, this is about addressing one more than we had yesterday. Yeah. So it's something that we'll continue to see grow, and I think other organisations are taking note of this, and I think it's a pretty exciting future for Dubbo. And we haven't even actioned the 4 blocks that we've reserved specifically for 3D printed housing.
Okay, that's so it's a separate thing again. Okay.
That's right. This is just normal blocks of land that they'd be using for this. So it is pretty exciting.
Oh, look, it is exciting because it's showing initiative, it's showing advancement, it's showing the architectural features, all the sort of stuff that we look towards around the rest of the world. That, again, I use that example of Rotterdam, where people go to these places to see what's happening from a futuristic perspective that will soon become part of what we always see everywhere. This will become part of all of that as well. Now, looking through here, speaking of delegations and all of that, I noticed the fact that you got it with Mark Coulton and a delegation from New Zealand. So China, New Zealand.
I know, it's
you just been around the world here in Dubbo this week with speaking to different sort of people. So what was this delegation here?
There were 4 New Zealand politicians here in Dubbo.
Right.
And Mark was happy to say that these delegations that come across, sometimes other politicians sometimes spend their time in the capital cities, but Mark said he was very keen to get people out into real Australia, out into places like Dubbo, to show them what the real world's like, rather than just go to Sydney and look at the Opera House.
There it is.
So Mark was very happy that he brought this group out there. Yeah. And it was actually interesting. One of the things that I'll often do when you talk to people at whatever level of government in other countries is just do some comparisons. What are the issues? What are the challenges? What are the things that you can see going forward? And so we had a good, fruitful discussion around a whole range of things. Funnily enough, they were actually going to have a look at the 3D printed toilet. That was
really? Okay, so that was on their agenda already, was it?
They'd certainly heard about it, and they wanted a bit more information.
See, word gets out there, folks. That's how it works. This is New Zealand.
That's right.
Just here in Australia.
And they were keen to go along and look at that. But just, what's our number one issue? What's our number one challenge? And we talk about financial sustainability, and that just seems to be such a common theme across so many parts of the world. Last December, I was over in Japan on a delegation, and number one issue for Japanese councils, financial sustainability. So New Zealand, same issue. It is a tough challenge, and we agreed on one thing that seems to be common is that having enough finances to do what you need to do is a challenge, but the expectation from the public about what they want from their governments at all levels has increased dramatically over the 2 decades I've been involved anyway. Certainly what people expected 2 decades ago compared to now, people expect a lot more. They want a lot more facilities. They want a lot more services, but they don't necessarily want to pay a lot more money for it. So that's a common theme. But it is interesting just chatting to people from different parts of the world. It's actually quite, I find it fascinating, but also you tend to try and learn bits and pieces from different people around the world as well, and even the way different governments are set up, that's always interesting as well. So it's always good to chat. I don't know there's anything that I can apply from what I learned in council tomorrow, and maybe they're the same. Maybe they can't go back and say, well, we got this great idea from Dubbo, but maybe 3D printing. Maybe
I was going to say, just out of curiosity, what was their thoughts on the 3D printed toilets?
Well, they were going, after I met with them, they were going to have a look
I
at
hadn't
it.
had a chance to catch up about that.
They hadn't seen it when I met with them, but they certainly thought the concept was fascinating, and they'd seen a little bit of a video, one of the videos that I'd shot there, they'd seen a little bit of that, and so they were really keen to go and see what it looked like in the real world. Yeah, so,
good on you. So
anyway,
another tourist attraction for Dubbo.
It is, actually.
That's right. Now, speaking of tourist attractions, I'd like to sort of get into this one with you, Matt. This is a very, very exciting announcement. I read with great interest there the other night a post that you put up there in regards to this. Announcement has come through. The $7.2 million from the federal government has come through for the Wiradjuri Cultural Tourism Centre. We've been talking about this at length for quite a while on a number of podcasts, Matt, and I'm so excited by the fact that the federal government has now come forward and said $7.2 million allocated for this. Matt, from your sort of experience in the field of being in Dubbo City Council for many years, or Dubbo Regional Council for many years, have you ever seen a funding announcement like this come through?
This is the biggest ever that I've been able to find. And I actually, when I got the text from Mark Coulton to let me know we received it, I actually let out a bit of, and realised what I'd just done out loud kind of thing. So it was pretty exciting because it has been ticking away for some time. And I did go back and I actually rang former Mayor Alan Smith and just asked him if he could remember anyone's as big. I know we've received some big grants in the past for the sale yards. Yeah. We've received some, the 10 megalitre underground storage of water, stormwater storage at Apex Oval. Yep. That was a big grant, but maybe $4.5 million, that one. Yep. I know we received some for the airport. There's been some good grants along the way, but I can't get anywhere where we have had a grant of $7.19 million.
So it puts it all in perspective then, the size of this grant. It's enormous. So therefore, where do we go to from here? What's our next little step?
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about a couple of other things first before we go to the next step.
That's all right. Yeah, please do so.
Just to give an idea of, I suppose, the significance and the scale. So that's the first part.
This is massive, folks. You know, from the point of view of Dubbo, we're talking here, the total figure, combined figure now is about, $15 million to build this,
To build this, that's right. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit. Some other facilities, just to give you an idea of the context.
Yeah, sure.
Way back, when I first got elected in 2004, the hot topic at the time was the theatre. People wanted some sort of tiered theatre. Yeah. And so that was a big election topic. And it got to about 2006, we made the decision to go ahead, but the only way we were going to fund it, because we exhausted every opportunity for any money from the state or the federal government, was we had to pay for it ourselves. So we had a 5% rate increase over 2 years to actually fund the theatre.
So there was no real sort of significant funding at that point in time from the state or federal government to support that concept at the time?
Not even insignificant funding.
Yeah, so really, there was zero. Diddly squat.
We tried in a whole, and I wasn't mayor at the time, but the council tried in a whole range of different ways to get funding and got none.
Wow.
Now, the build for that was approximately $16 million, and it could be slightly counted differently depending on exactly which parts of it you counted and how much you counted linking through to the old Civic Centre. But in round numbers, $16 million we spent on building the Dubbo Regional Theatre and Convention Centre.
And what a wonderful venue it is still.
Correct. 23rd of July 2010 that opened.
And it still looks as good as it did the day it probably opened, I'd suggest.
And we've had over 750,000 people, three-quarters of a million people have gone through that theatre in that time. Who would say we don't want the theatre now?
Yeah, absolutely.
About 35% of people that attend there come from outside 2830. So it's a tourist attraction in its own right.
Yeah.
So you look back at that and you say, Well, that was a big investment from the ratepayers who we had to get on side to do that 5% rate rise. And in doing that, you look back now and say, well, definitely it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
We definitely want that.
Yep.
The other one I thought of that was a significant build was the Western Plains Cultural Centre.
Yeah.
So that was officially opened on the 10th of February 2007. Again, no grants, no state, no federal money for that particular build.
Yep.
$8.2 million we spent on that.
Yep.
Even the old school, the old high school there, which as you know is a part of it,
Yes.
that was put up for sale in 2001, or I don't think it was put up for sale. We bought it, but we didn't even get that granted to us. We had to pay $250,000 to buy that from the Department of Ed in 2001. So again, that there, what a fantastic facility that is.
Yep.
All funded by ratepayers. We didn't have a special rate variation for that one, but all funded by ratepayers.
Yep.
And in the last 12 months alone, 141,513 people have been through that particular facility. So again, you look back at that and go, well, we wouldn't see Dubbo the same now without that. So keep those two in the back of your mind.
Yep.
This particular facility, $15 million, as you said. We just got the announcement during the week, $7.2 million from the federal government.
Yep.
We already had secured $5.6 million from the state government.
Yep.
So we'll spend $2.2 million on this. Now,
Which, when you compare that figure to what we spent on the theatre, what we spent on the Western Plains Cultural Centre, it's still only just a percentage of that sort of figure. And what are we getting in return? This massive, massive investment from federal and state government as well to produce something I'd suggest will be world class.
Yeah, you're spot on there. And this is the thing. It's not a lot of money. When I say not a lot of money, it's $2.2 million. So that's still a significant sum of ratepayers' money. But when you're getting a $15 million facility, I've said a few times already, been talking about this, that I would take that just about every day of the week. And I have to have a pretty good reason not to take that, given the fact that in the past we've funded a $16 million facility entirely ourselves, funded an $8.2 million facility, and I'm going back a long time, so add inflation to that, adds up to a larger facility. So you're talking
about $24 million from two facilities which we funded ourselves. This world-class facility, all we need to put in is $2 million. So it's about a tenth of what we've put in the past of those other two great facilities.
Yeah, or if you like, it's less than 15% of the cost of this build.
Yeah,
so we've done well, and our staff have done really well here in juggling some grants. So the whole concept here was we were trying to still get the old Dubbo Jail Heritage Plaza and the shared pathway and the events precinct and the Wiradjuri Cultural Tourism Centre. We had limited funds from the state government for those. We didn't want to put in much money ourselves, obviously as small as possible. We had deadlines for the state government funding when we had to have things built or we had to hand the money back. And we were trying to get a grant from the federal government to top it up to get to the point where we could deliver all of this. The federal government grant, and many of these grants are 50-50, so you've got to provide 50% of the money yourself, but it didn't mean the 50% had to come from council. 50% could come from
state government,
from some of the other parts. The other one that I thought was quite a similar one where we've done something similar to this was Barden Park. And Barden Park, I do remember we put in for an application for the federal government for Barden Park initially back in around 2011, maybe 2012, and we were unsuccessful. And Murray Wood, who's now CEO, was a director responsible at the time. Murray Wood and I went to Canberra and sat down with the people in that particular department and went through the process. Why do we miss out? What do we get wrong? How can we improve? Because there'll be a second round. We want to put in for that round. And what we were told from that is we didn't have enough money from other sources. We were relying too much on the federal government money. So we went away and we reworked it and came up with some extra money from the state government. In the end, when we got that, we had the grant from the federal government was $3.477223, so call it $3.5 million from the federal government. We had $1.256 million from the state government, and we as council put in $958,130. So again, round numbers, $1 million from us, 1.3 from the state, 3.5 from the federal government. So again,
another great facility for Dubbo, though. That's the thing.
Great facility for Dubbo, but we put in a fairly small percentage overall. But it seems fair and reasonable to me as well. You can't sit back and expect state and federal to give you all the money for your community because they've got lots of communities across the state and across the nation.
They've got to be able to justify to everyone else as well why they're giving this money to this particular community too.
That's right. And I also think that it seems fair and reasonable that you're putting in some money for something that's going to be in your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the bottom line here, so just to give you the exact numbers, $7.190505 million was announced from the federal government as part of the Growing Regions program, round one. There'll probably be a round two of that. Who knows when round two will open? We don't know. They took a bit longer to decide this one than we would have liked. We've been sweating on them a little bit because we've still got the state government money that we've got to have spent by a certain time frame, and the longer this went, the tighter that time frame was becoming.
I remember that. Yes, I talk about that. Yeah,
we put this final up. There was an EOI process we had to go through. We did that. We made a decision back in December 2023. So last year, council resolved unanimously to go ahead with this particular grant application, including the $2.2 million of funding there. And so we put that in about the middle of January. We were told to be 6 to 8 weeks before the announcement was made. It took a bit longer than 6 to 8 weeks, but I think we'll get there now. I think the timeframes are fine. And I think the state government will be okay now that we've got that. When we say this is our program, this is how it's going to line up. Essentially, I think we'll probably get this built by the middle of 2026, which is a fairly tight time frame to build a big facility.
Absolutely.
But we've got a lot of it already ready to go. I think the DA will come out of council within the next month, and we'll roll out to tender, and away we'll go. But again, we've got to be hitting the ground running because essentially...
Well, your state government money is going to run out at some point, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. So we've got to be very conscious of that. So this is a really exciting concept. And again, I'm happy for anyone to correct me, but I cannot find with my personal knowledge, with my research that I've done, and certainly talking to people like Alan Smith and other people that have been involved in council, anywhere that we've had a bigger grant and the biggest build since the theatre. Now, I'm excluding out of that things like a bridge, things that are not facilities for the community. I mean, a bridge is for the community, but the new Dubbo Bridge is being built is obviously a bigger facility, but that's not our facility. That's not something we're building. Bridges are bigger often, and sometimes you get more money from federal government. I'm talking about a community facility, if you like, rather than a bit of roadworks or
something so incredibly exciting. You know, like that's the other thing too is that again, when you travel around the world, you get to go and see some pretty cool places, and when you go to places that you're looking. When you come to some of these places, you're looking for this cultural heritage. You're looking for places to go which sort of gives a bit of a link to the past. Well, we have, of course, the oldest population in the world right here in Australia, of course, with Aboriginal people. And to have something of this significance, because there's not many of these type of things around Australia, unfortunately. That's, to me, there's been a void of that around. To suddenly to create something like this here, it will attract international attention. There's no two ways about it when this thing is built. It's so exciting. It's another reason for people to come to Dubbo. It's another reason for people to stay the extra day in Dubbo. It's stuff we've talked about for many, many times. So, again, I can sense the excitement. I feel excited about this. We should all really rally behind this. This is a really important venture and a wonderful new venture here for Dubbo.
And I still remember my brother moved to America a long time ago when I was very, very young, my oldest brother. And he comes and visits from time to time, and he comes over with his wife and his kids. His kids are a bit older now, but they used to come over a bit more regularly.
Yep.
And I remember one time they came over once before where my brother and his wife, and they brought their 3 kids over. And one of the things they did was they went out and they learned to throw boomerangs. So boomerangs were made at a particular site in Dubbo, and they'd throw them, and the kids thought it was fantastic, and it was all good fun. And they came over a few years later, and they wanted to go do the same thing. Oh, I want to go and do that thing with the throwing boomerangs. Going, oh, sorry, that business no longer exists. Oh, what else can we go and do? We want to go and do some stuff, some Aboriginal stuff. What can we do with some Aboriginal tourism? And I said, well, there's not much here, unfortunately. So that's a bit of a problem. When people do come, and that's, I know that's one example, but when people come from overseas in particular, but even when people come from the Big Smoke,
absolutely,
they expect to see some tourism that relates to maybe some of our 60,000-year history here, and we don't really have enough of that. One of the exciting things that I think about this project is I think it will be exceptional from an Aboriginal person. If I was an Aboriginal person, I'd be thinking this is fantastic to give my culture some home, to give my culture a voice, and to give my culture a bit of a light of the day. But I also think if you don't care about anything from an Aboriginal perspective, if you just care about Dubbo and tourism and the economy, this will also be a major injector into our tourism. Now, I'm not saying I don't care. I'm just saying if you're someone that didn't care about that. But I think it's significant from an Aboriginal perspective, but I also think it's significant from the Dubbo economy perspective. And I think that's
a classic example for you to think about just now. we're thinking about sort of, international people thinking here about families and people like that as well. There's a huge, big educational sector out there of schools that will love this, that will embrace this. It's another reason to bring if you've got a school camp and they want to go out and decide where they're going to come from Sydney, we'll go out to the zoo. But the main reason we want to go is to go and visit this because it will fit in so easily within the syllabus and there's nothing out there for them right now in New South Wales or around Australia that was going to be anything like this. So I can see an influx of school groups wanting to come to Dubbo simply to come along and see something like this.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity there for more Aboriginal employment. So imagine having people who are employed to say, you as an Aboriginal person have a school group coming along tomorrow that you can go through and teach them about some of the history of your people. Yeah. All sorts of opportunities there. Yeah. The estimation is that $90 million will be injected into the economy over the first 3 years and 160 jobs over the first 3 years. So obviously there's a huge opportunity there. So
very exciting. Good
news all round.
Absolutely.
So it is, you're right, it's very exciting and I think something that the community definitely will get behind. So I'm looking forward to seeing it progress. It's council meeting this week is the first stop go. So we've got to go through council meeting because that'll be the last chance for councillors to say yes or no to this. Okay. We could say no. We could say, thanks very much, federal government. We don't want your $7.2 million. I know it's the biggest grant you've ever given to Dubbo, but we don't want it. Thanks very much.
Okay. Or a brave person to come up against that, I suggest.
Or, yes, let's go ahead, full steam ahead, and let's make this a fantastic facility.
Can I just put it out there? Can we just please just get this through and get this started?
And then starting it again, that'll be full steam ahead then. So very exciting.
Absolutely. When I went overseas there, I kept throwing a bit of that in, doing a bit of flexing here on this podcast today, aren't I? One of the things we used to love to do was when we're driving around, particularly through the UK, would be to drop into the visitor information centres because we used to love to drop in there and get the information on a town or an area. Plus, of course, the toilets were free. If you haven't been in the UK, you don't have to sort of pay for your toilets over there, but they're always free in the information centres. We've got a couple of great information centres, one in Dubbo, one in Wellington around here. Now, the world's changing, Matt. We're wondering here, and I suppose it's part of maybe what this next little discussion is going to be about, visitor information centres like the one we have here in Dubbo and the one in Wellington, are they currently servicing the needs of our visitors in the way that the population expects today? And is there an opportunity here maybe to revisit maybe how we should be servicing our people coming in and out of our towns?
See, I would have said that no one would buy a map at a Vic anymore.
Oh, I do.
And that's the thing. We've been doing a service review of a whole range of our areas. And one of the things we've been looking at is our two visitor information centres. And I would have thought, without having any data, I would have thought, well, why do we keep maps in these anymore? No one. Surely they've all got a map on their phone. They'd all be using that. But
it's for old blokes like me who love to sort of come in and still get the tactile feel of a map and have someone draw it for me and go here and go there.
And what I found is you're not alone.
Oh, is that right? That's good to hear.
So people are still buying maps. People are still scribbling on them. They're getting the advice from people in our Vics.
Having arguments with their wife as to turn left or turn right.
That's right. And usually when you're using a sat-nav, that answers the question for you, but on a map, you've got to turn it around the right way.
That's right.
One of the things that we've looked at is that our current Dubbo Visit Information Centre sits on the Newell Highway. But that won't be the Newell Highway in a couple of years' time.
The new bridge comes into existence.
So one of the great things about that particular Vic is it's got lots of car traffic going past there, people going down the Newell. We might get people to be attracted there and just pull in and have a chat. Oh, I'm here for a couple of hours, a couple of days, what should I do? So that's something that we've got to consider. Is that the best location going forward into the future? Then we've got to consider as well what other things are better off to be located with it. So, for example, a standalone visitor information centre means we're employing staff that aren't generating any money for Dubbo. Sure, we sell a few tourist items in there, but we're not generating a lot of money, but we've got to keep that open as often as possible. Do we need it open 7 days a week? Is that the best thing to do? Because it's expensive for us to employ people on Saturdays and Sundays. And again, do people just look on their phone? Are we better off co-locating? And one of the bits of research we found is that many visitor information centres are co-located with a cafe. Okay. That kind of makes sense.
Yep.
I'll call into the cafe, make some money out of the selling of the coffee while they're getting some advice about what they might do. Or should it be co-located with some other facility, a museum type thing? And there's many that are co-located with the museum. So we're looking at this big picture. No decision. This has really been an initial discussion, an initial workshop with councillors, just to give you an idea of where we're thinking, where our heads are at. We might need a different location because that Newell Highway will change. In doing that, do we look at somewhere else that might be better in terms of other facilities? There's a spare building beside the current civic admin building, the old carpet court building. Would that be a better place for a visitor information centre? Could we have a cafe there, for example? Would that make sense? Or what about, we've got the Western Plains Cultural Centre now. We've got a cafe that's already there. Could we incorporate somewhere there a visitor information centre? Is that a better location? I don't know. These are all the sort of questions that are being asked. Do we still need a visitor information centre? Is everyone going online now? Well, no, we're still getting good numbers coming through.
So we're still getting good numbers of people actually going through these visitor
we
information
are.
centres? Okay.
And again, I didn't realise to buy maps, but sometimes it's nice that just that little personal advice. You can look on TripAdvisor, you can look on a whole range of online sites. But just saying, hey, I'm here for this long, what do you recommend? Or I like this type of food, where should I go? There's nothing like that little bit of a personal touch there. In Wellington, there's a few different options there. The numbers have certainly dropped a bit there, but there's a range of anecdotal information about that in terms of why the numbers have dropped there, whether caravans, buses, that sort of thing can still park there, whether the toilets are adequate there that are in the park there.
It's located Cook Park, is that right?
Well, no, it's been moved from where it used to be in the middle of Cameron Park.
Cameron Park, not Cook Park, sorry.
That's right. Down, you think of Orange with Cook Park.
Oh, that's exactly right. I knew something starting with C.
But it used to be in the middle there. It's now down on the corner where the Wellington Council building is, the Wellington Civic Admin building.
Oh, it's down the other end, is it?
Well, no, it's kind of down the end of Cameron Park there, but further on, so it's a bit harder to park just out the front of it and get into it there.
Yep.
And we do it there because we've got our staff there, that are our admin staff there already. But that's another thing we're looking at. We know that some banks have pulled out of Wellington. So, for example, the NAB pulled out of Wellington. I sent out a letter to various institutions to say, is there any institution that would like to be located in Wellington? And I'm thinking of smaller institutions maybe rather than the big banks, because we've got a lack of banking facilities there. And one of the things that we will look at as well is possibility of leasing out some of the office space that we've got in that particular building for some type of banking institution.
Oh, okay. Right,
there are some councils that actually have council staff providing some of those banking facilities by being paid by a bank to do that.
Yep.
I'm not sure if we want to go that far or just lease out some of the space, but basically looking at what we've got, looking at how we're running it, would we be better off having the Vic in Wellington as part of our library, for example, rather than having it as part of the Civic Admin building? Would we be better off having the Vic out at the Wellington Caves, where there's a natural tourist attraction there anyway, so people can call in there, go to the Vic and then get information. Is that too far out of town? All of these things, again, this is the start of a process that will take maybe 2 years to get to the final point where we say, here's the best decision.
Yep.
And a good council should be planning in the future because, again, that example I gave of the Newell Highway, well, that's redirected. You don't want to say the Newell Highway's opened up on the new bridge today. Oh, wait up. Gee, that visitor information centre isn't in a great spot now.
No, that's right.
You want to be planning in the advance. So keep an eye out on this. We're talking about it at the moment. We're discussing it. Co-location with other facilities, things that attract people along there naturally, all about trying to get the best bang for our buck, make sure we're using our staff in the most efficient way. We're not talking about removing any staff or outsourcing any of it. It's really just making sure we're using our staff.
Do you get community involved in this as well? Is there a community input section on any of this sort of stuff? Or?
There will be, but it's almost too early for that yet. We're really we've had the discussion and that's been about it. And again, part of this podcast is really to give the community a bit of insight into what's happening. Things that we often talk about here don't come to fruition for a year, 2 years, but it's really about giving people insight into what's happening behind the scenes without releasing confidential information, but just information about what's happening. And this is really step one in this long journey about what the relevance of VIX, what way VIX are being used by people now as compared to how they were used in the past, and how we can make sure we stay relevant going forward.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I remember as a kid I'd go down to Victoria Park and feed the swans, who my parents always sort of tell me, I used to refer to them as the deadliest animals in the world, swans. Because apparently when I was a little tyke, around about probably 2 or 3 years of age, a swan must have attacked me. So after that, I simply declared the fact that they are the most deadliest animals in the world. I've since discovered they're actually quite beautiful animals and not really deadly at all. Just stay away from them. But it looks as though the fountain down there, which has been a centrepiece of Victoria Park for many years, is undergoing a little bit of, well, repair and refurbishment.
Well, first of all, I'm impressed at your age. You can remember back when you were a kid.
Thank you very much. It's probably sort of etched in my memory from the scarring of my finger. No.
So we are doing some repairs. The Victoria Park fountain there is something that, I have fond memories as a kid as well, putting bits of bread in the water. I'm not sure if I meant to do that, but we all did
I think we all did it, didn't we? That's right. Loaves would go in there in the end.
That's right. And so it's been one of those things that it was a beautiful area, but it's a fairly old area. And I think if I had to pick a date, 1897, I think it was first built.
You'd only been about 7 or 8 at the time, weren't you?
I can only just remember it. So it's one of those areas that needs a bit of work, and so we are actually shutting it down from Monday. People typically get this download on the Sunday, so tomorrow, Monday the 20th of May, we'll start doing some works around there. They should be finished by the end of May.
Okay.
And then, again, have a look at what it looks like after that. Yeah. But just keep an eye out for that area. You see some work being done there. It's just tidying up some of that area there. Maintenance of the aquatic plants in the pond, doing some of the planting and mulching improvements of the island, and repairing the fountain. So hopefully it'll get back to maybe as good as it looked when you were a little
Let's
person.
hope so anyway. Hope those swans aren't nearly as deadly as they used to be 50 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long they live, but I'm sure they're different ones there now.
They probably are. Local libraries celebrate National Simultaneous Storytime. Sounds like a nice idea. What's this about?
It is a nice idea, and it's one of the things, it's a national initiative, obviously, National Simultaneous Storytime, where you do get, basically, stories being read across the nation at the same time, so it's simultaneous stories.
Right. Yeah.
And
there's
I
a bit of a countdown, sort of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, everyone now start reading?
Almost. I haven't done quite that level. I've normally gone to various primary schools, infant schools sometimes have me around to read to them. So we're doing something at the library as well. So basically Tuesday, 21st of May, 10:30 to 11 at the Dubbo Library, and Wednesday, 23rd of May from 11am to 11:45am at the Wellington Library. Yep. So even though it's talking about National Simultaneous Storytime, my experience typically is that it's a little bit variable depending on when it fits in with maybe classes or when people are available, that type of thing.
Yep.
So
when due to finish a coffee sort of thing, she can start reading sort of thing. That sort
well,
of stuff.
something like that. They do have a nominated book though. This is what I like. They pick a book.
Right.
So the book...
That's a bit stricter than when they probably start the reading.
That's exactly right. So there's a book called Bowerbird Blues by Aura Parker.
Right.
And it's a story about a bowerbird who feels like something's missing and he searched for his favourite colour in blue. So I won't tell you the ending because that'd spoil it for everyone.
Does he find it?
I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that
just
until after National Simultaneous Storytime.
You can tell me later.
I think the whole idea here is really just to get kids typically excited about reading books, get kids interested in reading books. Hopefully they are anyway. Hopefully their teachers are doing that job anyway. Yep. But if we go back to parents, if we go back to last year, they said over 2 million children read or had that book read to them last year.
Wow.
Obviously, it was a different book last year.
Yeah, right.
But again, that's a fantastic concept. And it'd be pretty special to be the author that had their book chosen.
Absolutely.
Thinking, wow, 2 million kids, for example, across the nation had that book read. So, keep an eye out for that. You can go and look at more information. We've got more information on our website about it if you like. But you'll see lots of...
It's a great initiative, isn't it?
It is a great initiative, and you'll see lots of schools, lots of different groups around the region doing that National Simultaneous Storytime at the same time, almost.
That's it, exactly.
over this week.
All right, this is something, this is a good one, little bit of a call out here. The next new resident night. Now, this is something that you do pretty regularly these days here, don't we? The new resident nights. The next one's going to be Wednesday, the 22nd of May. So that's this Wednesday.
This Wednesday.
It's coming up.
Right, yeah. So 22nd of May at the Dubbo Regional Theatre and Convention Centre in the foyer. We're holding this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we do, about every 6 months, we say to people, if you've moved to Dubbo in the last 6 months-ish, if you've moved to Dubbo recently, if you feel like a new resident, come along. We set up various stall holders there, and they're from sporting groups, they're from charity groups, they're from service clubs.
Right.
We want people to be in our community, part of our society. And so if I'd move somewhere new, for example, not that I'm ever thinking of leaving Dubbo, but if I did move somewhere new, I'd probably go and look for maybe a Rotary club to join. I might be try and find a sporting club, maybe a mountain bike club to go and ride there. You'd try and get into some parts of the community, maybe some volunteer groups. How can I volunteer some of my time and contribute to this new community I've just joined? So we've got all these stall holders around, and new people come along and they go, oh, I've been thinking about playing a bit of tennis or a bit of touch footy or joining a Rotary club or whatever it might be. You've got those stall holders there to encourage you to be part of the community. We want these people that have moved to Dubbo to go, wow, Dubbo's a really good community. You've welcomed me with open arms. I really want to be part of the community. Fantastic. Thanks for making me feel so welcome. And again, in doing that, then you might join a club. You might be part of that community.
Reminds me of the university union days. This is the old sign-up day sort of stuff. It's a bit like that, isn't it?
Exactly right, So less alcohol involved, obviously.
That's right.
But the concept here is that we want these people to feel welcome. They've made the big move to move here. We do some little games. We give away some prizes, just a few range of things there. If you want to come along, technically you're meant to register because we want to know numbers for catering.
Do you just technically register online, or
you can go online if you just go to our website and just go to the Dubbo website. You'll be a link there to register. But I don't really care. Don't tell the staff this. But I don't really care if you turn up without registering. I think we've got a reasonable idea with the numbers. We know approximately how many people are going to turn up. So if you haven't registered, 5:30 p.m. 5:30. 2 hours it goes for. It's a good chance to meet other people as well. And I normally come up with some random games to try and get people to talk to each other and meet each other. Also love to find out where people have come from, who's moved from the closest away from another LGA to here, who's moved from the furthest away. And every time there'll be people from overseas that have moved here. So I just love to hear their stories. We get a few people on the microphone and give us a bit of their rundown in terms of how they've moved here. The first answer they've got to give is the council was the best council ever. That's why they moved, is number one. They're allowed to have secondary reasons, but that's got to be the primary reason. But it's a bit of an uplifting night because people have moved here for a positive reason. They want to be part of a great community. They've moved here. They're here. Fantastic. Let's hear your story, but also let's make you feel welcome. So,
I'm looking forward to actually hearing some of their stories next week.
Yeah, definitely. And I do like to talk to as many as I can. I don't get a chance to talk to everyone there, but I do like to talk to as many as I can. So if you feel like, I don't care if you've moved here in the last year, 2 years, if you haven't been to one of these nights or you still feel like you're a new resident, come along. It's really open to people that are new residents, whatever definition that might be.
Wonderful. So this Wednesday, the 22nd of May, 5:30 at the foyer of the DRTCC. Is that right?
Perfect. That's it.
Done. Well, mate, we've got through the first podcast back with me here. We managed to survive pretty well, I think. We've got through a lot to get through, which means, of course, we always finish up with our Limerick of the Week. So, now you've had a couple of months to think about what you want to say when I come back, so I'm assuming your Limerick of the Week's going to be about me, of course, isn't it? Is that right?
I knew you'd be too modest to accept a Limerick. If I started to do a Limerick about you, I know you'd say, no, Matthew, no. That's too much.
So now I'm disappointed.
Well, I've been looking forward to having you back because Richard was being very harsh on me on my Limericks. He's given me very low scores.
Really?
I've said to Richard, I can
He's
hardly wait for Mark
to come back. He can be very
back.
tough, though, Richard. He can be, especially with those judgment calls. That's right.
Well, it improved. It started off very low, but by the end, I got to a reasonable score.
Did you?
So, yeah,
there you go.
Took a fair bit of effort for him. So,
well, I'm expecting the fact with all that constructive advice that it's probably going to be fabulous, this one this week.
Well, let's hope so. And I couldn't miss the fact that we got the money for Wiradjuri.
Well, yes, okay.
That was the one.
If you're going to wait up between me being back or that, I understand.
Yeah, that's right. I've given you ones before. I don't want to pump your head up too much. Okay, here we go. A windfall for Dubbo so grand, for culture to flourish and stand. Wiradjuri's past in a centre so vast will be shared across this great land.
Oh, see, now I reckon that's really good.
Oh, thanks.
So, as a great...
You can stay. You can come back next week.
Well, as a great mentor of mine, Pop Fa used to always say, he said, Mark, I'll give you 3. Doesn't matter what's out of. I'll give you 3. Well, folks, that brings us back into the end of the very first podcast back with Matty. I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next week, take care.
Straight from the mayor's mouth with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.